Good morning, and thanks for coming here on your Saturday and spending your time with us. My name is Bill Marshall. I've been an instructor here for about 35 years. And when I started in computing, it was about 1978, and we had what was called a card reader, and you would put those cards into a computer, and then it would be uploaded to the University of Washington, and then stored overnight, and the next day you would actually get your program back. And the interesting thing was, that's when we found out if the program actually worked. So we had quite a lag time in just running a program. I'm currently running 2 domains on the campus, so I do a lot of this work. I do what I'm going to talk to you about. Here's my contact information. And if you have any questions about the college or you have any questions about our program, certainly feel free to go ahead and contact me. It's bmarshall@edcc.edu. And you'll notice my email is kind of I have an old email because I've been here for so long. It's never been translated over to bill.marshall. And that's also my phone number. But I'll kind of give you a hint about this. If you call me, I have a tendency to ignore my phone, those of you who know me. But email is my to-do list. So if you email me, you get a pretty good response. I'll go ahead and respond to you relatively quickly. And again, if you have any questions, I'm a co-department head. If you have any questions about the department or anything about the college, certainly feel free to email me. And if I don't know the answer, I can direct the question to the proper person. Okay, the classes, I'd like to introduce you to classes that I teach, and 5 classes in particular. And they're server classes. They're what we call server classes. And the concept I'd like to get you to know, I talk about server services and client services. And one of the hard concepts to get when you start to learn this industry is that like a Windows 8 or a Windows 7 computer is what we call a client. And in order for it to communicate on the internet or in a local area network, it has to ask a lot of questions, and a server has to answer those questions. So as I go through these classes, what you're going to see up here is a list of topics. And when you see them, what I want you to understand is those are what we call server topics. Again, workstations need to ask questions regarding these topics. So this maps to the Microsoft 2012 Server 410 exam. And the class actually preps you for that exam, to take that exam. And of course the class, it's going to be a introduction and installing and configuration. We're going to learn to install these things. Although what I do, and you're going to see this a little bit later in the graphics, what I do is I have what are called pre-built templates, and we're going to be building virtual machines. And if you go over to my demonstration, we'll be building those virtual machines. It takes about 3 minutes to actually construct a server, and about 9 minutes to configure it. So we've got this down pretty fast. It works relatively quickly. If you were to do this from, say, a disk, you know that takes a lot of time for that installation. But we're going to be talking about a concept called virtual machines, and we're going to create those things on the fly. And again, if you go to my demonstration, I'll show you how to do this. Hyper-V is kind of an interesting topic. What that's all about is that's the ability, and this is kind of a hard concept to get. I can have one physical PC, say a PC, but on that PC I can actually have 5 operating systems running. So I can have a Windows 8, a Windows 7, a Server 2012, I can have a Server 2008, and I can have them all working at the same time, and they will communicate to each other, and they'll actually act like a discrete machine. Each one acts as if it was a discrete machine. And again, they're all running on one machine. It's a wonderful thing because for modeling purposes, when I need to show you a concept, I can say, okay, now switch over to this machine, set this up, now go over to this machine and see how it affects it. How does that change things? And that's Hyper-V. Active Directory, if you must have Hotmail or some sort of email account. Something has to authenticate you to prove you are who you are. So you put in your credentials, which is like your email address, and then you put in your password. That goes up to a server service, and it says, are you who you say you are? And then it comes back and it allows you access to your email. Active Directory is a lot like that. It's a very complex topic, and you're going to see that it's in multiple classes. And we'll be talking about that a little bit. DNS, this is kind of an interesting one too. Computers have IP addresses. But the best way to think about that is they're all like a phone number. It's almost as if you have a phone number. So when you type something like www.edcc.edu in on a computer, and you're trying to go to a website, believe it or not, that doesn't exist. That has to be translated into a phone number, and that number is the number that it goes out, and it goes to that computer that's set up with that phone number, and it retrieves the information from there. And what DNS does, instead of you having to look up that phone number, it does it for you. So remember that server and client thing I was talking about? So when you're at a workstation, you do www.edcc.edu, it becomes a client. It sends out a request to what's called a DNS server, and it says, by the way, do you know what the phone number is for this particular site that I'm trying to get to? That then would respond back and say, oh, by the way, this is actually your phone number. This is the actual IP address you're trying to actually get to. File and print sharing, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that concept. It's the ability for multiple people to see a file. You can share it and other people can work on that file. Printing, in a network environment or in a business environment, you'll notice that there's a single printer and multiple people use that. There's all sorts of rules and regulations on how that should work, and it's important that that be set up correctly. Group policy, this is a fascinating one. Group policy, what we can do is we can actually tell a workstation how it should be configured. So when it turns on, it'll go ahead and it'll configure itself a certain way. And you may have actually experienced this. Have you ever gone to a library and then you work on the library computer and it's Windows 7? But you look at it and a lot of the stuff is missing. You ever had that experience? Well, a group policy object can do that. It can actually configure the workstation a certain way. And so we don't have to go out and tell that workstation. We do this through software. And this was done through a server. And so what ends up happening is the workstation checks in. It says, oh, by the way, is there any group policy objects for me, any rules for me? And then those rules are sent down by the server. And we're going to learn how to do that also in these classes. Networking, again, that's all about those phone numbers. How does everything find everything on the internet or on a local area network? And then there's something called DHCP, which is sort of an interesting idea. This is an idea where you would say, okay, what if I have a workstation? Let's say I have 500 of them. Would you want to go out and statically configure each one of those workstations? Probably not. And what if something changed? It's going to take a lot of time to make these changes, isn't it? So we have a server service out there that says, oh, by the way, I'm going to give a pool of phone numbers, IP addresses, and then what we're going to do is when you check in, I'll just give you one. And when you check out, I'll put it back in the pool. And that's a server service that we do use to do that. Okay, and then the second one, this is a server 411 certification. And it also does Active Directory. And we circle back on this a lot because these topics are very complex, and it's going to take us a while to get good at this. Again, group policy objects. Do you remember what that's about? That's our ability to take a workstation and we can tell that workstation how it's configured. And then DNS, remember what that one's all about? Again, we're going to circle back on that, and that's how do we give out, or if you type in www.edcc.edu, that doesn't really exist. So what you end up having to do is you have to translate that into the phone number so it can go to the right place. Remote access, this is kind of interesting. We're talking about phones a little bit, so it sort of reminded me. Right here on the phone, and I'm sorry you can't see this, but if you were to take a look at this, my phone, there's actually an app right here. Now on that app, I can go ahead and I can, through the phone company, I can get access to my server. That was kind of an interesting one. The only problem is this phone is so small, when I'm trying to configure things, my fingers get in the way and I can't get to the right spot. So a little bit small for what I've intended to do here, but very interesting that can be done. This is what this is all about. This is all about how do we work on a server from a remote site. So if a server has a problem, we may have to fix it. We may not be in the local area. The only downside is work tends to follow us. Have you noticed that recently, like with email? I don't know about you, but I wake up and my iPad's looking at me and it's got all these emails on it at 6 in the morning. Then I come to work and I actually do my email, And then as I'm at home, I also have on my phone all my emails going on. The other thing is I took a vacation, and of course my email followed me on my phone, so all this connectivity has its downside. Okay, this is the last one in the series of actual servers, and this one we're doing more Active Directory file storage, but this is a different type of file storage. In this file storage, you may be asking your question, well, what if a server goes down? What if it breaks? What happens? Well, we can set it up so that if a server breaks, we can have multiple servers all serving the same file so that they can take over for that one server. And we learned to do that as well. It has to do with high availability. Disaster recovery, what if Active Directory goes away? What if we lose the database? How do we get that back? And we learn a little bit about that. The advanced DHCP and the advanced DNS, what that's all about is security. How do we secure this stuff? Now that we've got it running, how do we make sure that it can't get corrupted by someone? And then Hyper-V, again, this is how we run 5 operating systems on a single machine. And again, if you go to my demonstration, and you're going to see some videos, pictures of this. You'll see some pictures of this in just a few minutes. But if you go to my breakout session, we will create virtual servers. And it'll take us about 30 minutes. We'll create 2 virtual machines, and we'll have them talking to each other. The Active Directory certificate services, do you online bank? I think everybody online banks, right? How do you know you're at the right bank? How do you know that's not a false website? HTTPS, but there's got to be a key involved in that. And the key has to be the proper key. And so what's happening is your browser's actually checking in to seeing if this is a legitimate key or not. Is this the right place? And so what we do is we learn to set that up. We actually learn to set up those certificates so that workstations know where they are. They believe they are where they are. Because somebody could falsify your bank, right? They could say, okay, hey, by the way, come here, this is your bank, and by the way, log in. As soon as you log in, the page disappears, right? Then, of course, they have your name and password. The Federation services, I don't know if you've ever done anything like this before, but have you ever been somewhere like Xbox 360, and then it wants you to authenticate, it wants to find out who you are, and so you put in your Windows Live email address. Have you ever done that? Something like that? That's Federation services. It's your way of authenticating, instead of at the site you're at, using another site to authenticate you, and that's Federation services. The next class is all about email. How do you get email to work in organizations? And I really love to teach this class. This is where we really start, this class is where I really get to do some very interesting and fun work, and I think it's one of the funner classes we have. What we do in this class is we build organizations. So everybody makes all their virtual machines. They build organizations at each one of their desks. Everybody builds a company. It's usually something like, my name is Bill Marshall, so I make Marshall.local as my company. Then what we learn is how does the internet move email? And that's, again, a DNS service. And then what we do is we set it up so that each one of us can send email from one organization to another organization. And we see how all that functions. That's kind of a fascinating example of how the internet works. But some other things that we do is we make distribution groups, and that's probably something you're used to, where you send one email but it goes to multiple people. Well, in a corporate environment, we have to have those preset. So we have distribution groups that we create, and those have to be done from some systems administrator. Recipient objects, that just means an email address, creating an email address. Public folders is sort of a precursor to something called SharePoint. You may have heard of that. It's sort of collaborative software. And the interesting thing there is what you're going to do is you're going to make individual users, they're going to be their own systems administrators. So what will end up is you'll have a site, and you'll say, oh, by the way, I'm working with this team over here. So what I need to do is I need to take my documents and make it available to them, but not to them. And you would be able to do that. And that's what a lot of this software is about. How do we work collaboratively, which is really the new work environment. And then we'll do email protocols. That won't make any sense. By the way, protocol, maybe when you hear that word, you can just think of a set of rules. What rules should we follow in order for us to communicate? And then we set up system securities. Again, do you remember that certificate services? Oh, yeah, by the way, you have a question?
Are you working with SharePoint also? Are you going to teach
I'm not necessarily going to teach SharePoint. We have a board that's directing our classes, and what they're recommending is that we do a collaborative software, but we haven't determined which one we're going to do, and that's on the books to do. It's a very good question, yeah. I sort of teach it here, but this is not nearly as powerful as what we're planning on doing. And then for system security, do you remember that certificate services? What we do is we set up our email servers with those certificates, and then we go ahead and we have people authenticate on those. And I'll give you a break from this technical information in just a few minutes, and we'll see if you have any questions. Okay. And the next class is a firewall class. The way to think of a firewall is it's your gate. It's your doorway into your network or out of your network, and it's just called a firewall. And of course, we learn to configure that. And then access list. The really interesting thing about an access list is it's almost like somebody's there at the gate. So there's some data that wants to come in. What that person would do is then inspect it and say, is this the type of traffic I want to permit in through to my network? And it's going to be doing that type of inspection. And traffic leaving your network, it's going to be inspecting that as well and deciding, is this traffic that should be there? So it may be, a company would decide, I don't know if you work for a company that's shut down Facebook. Sometimes companies will shut down Facebook and say, I'm sorry, while you're here as an employee, you cannot access Facebook. This is a way of doing that. Proxy services. I'm going to move away from the mic just to explain this. Proxy is sort of weird. What ends up happening, I'm hoping you can all hear, is it would be like you're a person making a request. That's a client. It goes over to a server, and that server then makes the request for you. It actually goes out and makes the request. So it goes and gets the actual end site. It brings back the information that goes to the proxy server, and then the proxy server responds back. You're probably asking, why would you want to do this? Sometimes we want to monitor. Oh, thank you. Sometimes we want to monitor traffic as it's going out of our network, so we can determine what in the world happened. We can track what happened in our network. So that's another service that we teach you how to do. Then there's also malware filtering. We're trying to keep bad stuff out of our network, and DNS services. Again, we went through DNS services. What we do is we end up making firewalls, we make Exchange servers, we make Active Directory servers, and then we make clients, and then we set it up so that the clients can send email from one organization to another organization. This is all done in the class. And then we have a main server that is our internet type server that is used to route that traffic, help route that traffic, or figure out where that traffic goes. Publishing is the reverse of proxy. That's somebody on the outside wanting to get to something on the inside. We have a server standing in place so that so traffic doesn't go directly into our network. And again, it's a security thing. VPN. What if you have a laptop, you're at work, you're going ahead and you go to your sites, the things that you would normally have at work, but what if you go on vacation, or what if you travel? What if you have to go out to another country, but you still need access to your resources? Well, there's something called a VPN, and you're going to learn to do that, and that's the ability to make an encrypted tunnel, and it's not really a tunnel, but we'll just call it that. It's an encrypted connection between your laptop and your company. And then your laptop, believe it or not, acts like it's inside that organization. And all the traffic, all the conversation that you have, emails, whatever, it's encrypted so nobody else can see it. Unless, of course, they've broken that path. And then there's a point-to-point VPN. This would be two companies, like company A, company B. They want to communicate over the internet. And so how do we connect them together? Again, a tunnel through the network, and that is encrypted so that the traffic going between the two companies cannot be seen. Okay, so by the way, are there any questions about what I just talked about? Anything that, yeah, yes, sir. Yes, it is Microsoft, but the idea is DNS is DNS is DNS. It will not matter what operating system we're running it on. it functions the same. There are some small changes that you have to be aware of. So if you run a Linux box, obviously you're going to have some changes that you need to be aware of. But the concepts are all there. And so I like to use that for the training. Yes? Anybody else? Does everybody get the client? I talk a lot about clients and servers. Is that making sense to you? Yes?
So as far as your certifications, these all go toward Microsoft certifications?
That is correct.
Can you take those here on campus, like tests or anything? Or
Yes, you
do
can.
have to be certified?
You can take the, yes. The question is, can you take the tests here at the campus? And the answer is yes, you can. We have a testing center available. And also for, oh,
Yeah, can I? Yeah, let me add something onto that. Thanks, Bill. I just figured I'd.
yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so we're actually a Prometric View testing center, and we're open on Sundays and Mondays, so you can take any certification test here pretty much that you want to. Yes, yeah. It's Prometric View Testing Center. As a matter of fact, if you go out to infosec.edcc.edu, don't worry too much about that. Actually, when we're done here today, I'll send out a final email. So you want to make sure that you're not blocking my address, at least not until you get the final email. Then you can block me all you want. But anyway, I'll go ahead and send out a final email. It'll have links to some of the stuff, and then I'm also going to chat with the other instructors as well to see about possibly posting copies of our presentations out there, because I know some of you are going to want to have that information. But one of the main reasons that I wanted to jump in here about the certifications, and I can cover this more later, is if you have an IT certification, don't care if it's Microsoft, don't care if it's Linux, Unix, vendor neutral, whatever the case may be, if you can show that you have met some competency, some international standard competency, we will award you college credit for that. And I can pretty much guarantee that many of you sitting out here right now are very close to getting a certificate of completion, a certificate, or perhaps even a 2-year degree, and you don't even know it. Okay, due to the fact that you've got some certifications under your belt. If you're like me, and I've got a couple certifications, but if you've got 10, 15 certifications, then you probably have got a degree right there. So you want to go ahead and chat with one of the instructors after. Anyway, yeah, as far as the testing center goes, we're the only Pearson VUE testing center, I believe, in this side of the mountains that's open on Sundays, because a lot of folks can't come in during the week; they're working and so forth. So we are open Sundays. Anyway, I will turn it back over to Bill.
Any other questions? Okay, what I'm going to show you next is how do we do what we do in the labs. So it's basically how do I build the internet or something similar to the internet inside the classroom, and I'll show you how that's done. This graphic was just sort of if you say you're at a workstation and you put in www.edcc.edu, and these are all workstations, none of them can answer the question. So a question's being asked, but none of them can answer that. And there's a server. It's my best graphic for a server. And there's the phone number. It's actually responding with the phone number that's needed for that particular site. So here, again, we're going to be, we're going to try to have our lab work as if it was the internet. And so, and I'll go ahead and go to the, and so we're going to use what are called virtual servers, virtual machines. So we're going to have a host, it's Windows 8, it happens to be that in this particular case, and we're going to be using VMware. And if you're taking our courses, we have a DreamSpark, so you're able to pull down the software so you can actually do this at home. You can actually create these virtual servers at home as well. A lot of folks like to do that. And I also build templates, and folks like to take those templates with them because they're really good testing templates, so they can review, take a look at this material over and over and over again, rebuild the servers, rebuild the networks. And so those are available to you as well. They're not licensed, so they're not a license violation, and they do time out and they have limited capability. So yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to have a single server run multiple operating systems. Might be better if we just take a look at what that looks like. Okay, so if you take a look here, this is the software you'll be running. And if you take a look on the screen, what you're going to see is you'll see some tabs at the top where it says SRV1, SRV2, and SRV3. Those are 3 servers that are running on this particular machine. At this point, they're paused, but they're running. It's sort of like if you put pause on a CD. It's still running, but it's just not functioning at this point. And so these are all paused in this particular situation. Over on the side, you'll see a whole bunch of servers I've created. And as I need things, as I want to do, like you'll see 2 classes there. One is a CIS 267 and one is CIS 266. What I can do is I can walk in and I can fire up the servers that I need for one class, and then I can park all of those, and then I can go ahead and fire up the servers I need for another class. And the same thing, you'll be doing the same thing. When you come in and take the class, you'll go ahead and you'll have your particular folder, and in there you're going to go ahead and launch your virtual machines. Down below, you'll see also templates on this one side. These are the templates that I've created, and some of them are servers and some of them are workstations. And what we're going to do in the lab, when you guys actually take the lab, is you'll right-click on one of those templates and you'll say clone. It's going to clone this machine. And again, it takes about 3 minutes for you to create a new virtual machine. It's not going to take much time at all. We use solid-state drives, so it's very fast. And then we go ahead and once you fire the machine up, it takes about 6 minutes to actually configure it and actually make it what we want it to be. And I'll be leading that from the front of the classroom. I'll actually have that running. Oh yeah, certainly. Yes, it is something you have access to, and it doesn't show up, I'm sorry, it doesn't show up in DreamSpark, you're right, yeah. So if you send me an email, if you're in classes, you send me an email, you will get a product code key. It's good for 2 years, yeah. Okay, so here, now I've got the machines that they're running, and so you'll see at the top, instead of the 2 yellow bars, you'll see a green arrow, and that means that machine is actually functioning and running. You have to be careful. There's not an unlimited number of these machines you can create, because what happens is it takes some of the system resources away from the actual operating system, and so you don't have as, you can only run so many of them, otherwise you basically run out of RAM. So that's a picture of just that server running. There we go. I wanted to show you a picture of this. This is another server, and it's in another state. We're used to the graphical interface. Does that seem, at least most of you are used to a graphical interface? Well, some of the servers now don't have a graphical interface anymore, and they're doing this because there's a lot of overhead with that graphical interface. It takes a lot of system resources away. So they're creating something that's like this, and it's basically very limited capability. So what we're having to do is we're having to switch from the graphical interface to command line. And we'll be learning that. So we're switching over as well, because that's what's going to be required for the job. Also, when you go and take your exams, you're going to be expected to know the command line in the exams. So we're switching that way as well. That's just another server. Now here, what we got is, this is a picture of a lab that I would have you do. This lab's about 11 to 15 pages long, typical lab. And you'll notice that we have 3 server symbols on one side. We have servers on the one side, and then I have a workstation over there. You will actually build this. This is all built on a single machine. It's virtual machines. And then what we can do is we can go ahead and we say, okay, let's go to one of these servers. We will configure that server. And also you'll see down here, here's those phone numbers I was talking to you about. So you have all those phone numbers that you're going to be putting in for those particular machines. And we run this as a small local area network. And that thing that looks like bricks up there, that's called our firewall. And then I just wanted to show you, this is an example of my instructions that I put together for putting this together. And again, it takes about 15 pages, a lot of written. But also, I know not everybody likes the idea of following just line by line typed instructions. So I do videos also. So I actually record myself doing these labs. So if you don't like following this, you can actually look at the lab being constructed, and you'll have examples of that as well. The interesting thing, and I've been hearing this from a few students now, and I'm not sure if this is going to continue as a trend, they went out and they went on a job interview, and the final interview was this. They actually said, here's 3-4 virtual machines, make this work. They wanted to know these folks could do it before they hired them. So a lot of what we're practicing here is used in industry. In fact, actually, everything we're practicing here is used in industry. It's just that it's going to be very new to you because, again, these are new topics. Okay, so how does a computer find a website? And again, the idea is, I'm just working this idea of server and client. You would be at a workstation, you would type www.edcc.edu. It would have to go out to a server, and it would say, oh, I know that name. By the way, here's the telephone number you need. And then it would take that telephone number or that IP address, and it would go to that IP address to retrieve the website you're trying to get to. Now, there's a whole bunch more to this than that. There's a lot of detail. That's why it takes a long time to train you and have you really good at what you're doing. So there's again, many details. And the question I would ask is, are there jobs? There's jobs. And if you go out to if you go out, you do a search on a site for, let's say, help desk. Excuse me, let's say you go out and you search and you go, okay, I want to find help desk. Well, so let's say you come up with 40, 50 jobs. Those jobs, by the way, those aren't the number of jobs. Those are the number of jobs they haven't filled yet. So what usually ends up happening is companies go for an internal first. And so a job comes open, they'll look internal. So if you're already working, that's a pretty cool thing because they're going to be looking for you to be maybe moved to that particular position. If they can't find anybody internal, they go for referrals. And this is really important. So when you go out to work and you're successful, and they say, wow, where'd you get your training? Do you know anybody else who's like you? And you say, oh yeah, by the way, I would refer you. You turned out to be a good friend. And they say, yeah, come on over, we'll get you an interview. So a lot of things happen through referral. That's very important that you be aware of that. So as you go through these programs, you want to make as many friends as you can. That's called our network. And even though we're networking people, we're not really good at networking, which means us being in contact with many people and having a lot of friends that can help us find work. Then, if that doesn't work, you finally see the posting. So I think the postings, in my honest opinion, is simply the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of work out there. The next thing you might be saying is, wow, this seems really complex. I'm listening to these instructors, and sometimes I don't know what they're saying. By the way, that's normal, because we tend to talk, and we sometimes we don't know what you know. And I have something I always say to classes at the very beginning. What's clear to me is clear to me. I totally get everything I'm saying. I just thought I'd mention that. But that doesn't mean that I'm making sense to you. So I need you to ask me questions, and that helps me a lot as far as understanding what you don't understand. And I'm usually pretty good at finding some analogy that helps you understand this material better. So again, what's clear to me is clear to me. If you follow that as a rule, you'll be okay. And same with all of us. I think we all are very open to questions, and we want to answer those questions. The other thing is you might be worried about math. Am I going to have to go through calculus? I struggled in math. I struggled in math. Just I thought I'd mention that. So you don't have to have math, a lot of math. Basic algebra is really all you need. What we really are about is logic. How do you think through a problem? And if you're good at that, and you're good at visualizing things, that's the skill we need. And that's the skill that's going to help you the most. Math is not bad. I mean, it's a good if you're really good at math. But again, it's not required. So if you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is not for me, it could be too complex, honestly, once you start getting into it, it's not as bad as maybe you think. We have 4 degrees, and everybody's going to be talking to you about an area of specialty. Mine is the networking technology, the third one down. But again, my email is bmarshal@edcc.edu. don't hesitate to email me. And even if it's not for my program or even for our department, I'm going to be able to put that to the correct person to get you the help you need. And I would really like to do that. Again, email me, don't phone me. Email's my to-do list, and the email does not go away until that task is completed. Certificates. Certificates are they usually take about 1 year. So what a lot of folks do is they end up taking the classes and they get a certificate, and then they want to go ahead and go to work, and then they want to finish their degree later. So folks do that as well. So this is more work ready, but it is not a full degree. You do want to get a degree. It's very important that you do get a degree. But sometimes we need to work before we just financially can't wait to go to work. So this helps us get to work earlier. And then we have what are called certificates of completion, and those are very focused. So let's say you've gone to work and you've gone ahead and you have your job, you're doing well, the company likes you, and they're saying, hey, by the way, I need you to be Cisco ready, because we're going to get some Cisco equipment. Well, then there's a Cisco, one of them up there is Cisco, and it's just specifically Cisco. So you might want to just take that short training and then have the ability to work on that equipment. Is there any other questions? Anything else I can? Yeah.
So just a general question about all the programs and schedule is you guys have a projected annual schedule.
Correct.
And so I've noticed I wanted to take some classes this summer. They're supposed to be available, but they weren't.
Yes.
And some of these classes only happen once a year, like exchange or two.
Yes.
So, like, if you guys are saying that the class is going to happen a certain quarter, for planning purposes, we need that to happen. So, I'm just pointing out that I wanted to take some classes this summer. They're supposed to be there, and they weren't.
Yeah, I'm sorry when that happens. There's things beyond our control. We want to do this, but if we don't have enough enrollment, we're not permitted to. And so it is our intent to make it as easy as possible for you. All of us really want to do that. And I do understand class cancellations can cause problems. We try to do that as little as possible. We try to also have multiple, like Exchange has done a couple of quarters in hopes that we hit one quarter that's convenient for you. We also do daytime classes and we do nighttime classes. So if daytime is convenient for you, we like to go ahead and follow that route. If nighttime is better, follow that route as well.
Bill?
And some folks switch. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna, thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to go ahead and jump in here just to address your specific question. So, one of the things that we can do, if you need a class badly, we'll often have a student that needs just 1 or 2 more classes in order to graduate or finish their certificate or what have you. Or perhaps their employer requires them to have a specific class. What we will do is we will work out a plan with you. It's called a special project. And you can actually, if there's just 3 or 4 students, we'll get you signed up for a special project, and you can actually come in and meet with the instructor, and we'll give you some things to do online, and we'll check in with you periodically, and you'll basically get the same class and the same education. It's just going to be in a smaller group, and then that way we can make sure that you will be able to graduate and you'll be able to finish, okay? So that's an option. All right, so just one of the things to keep in mind, because we want to make sure that you finish your program and we're meeting your needs, okay? So if that happens to you again, and you're in a situation where you must complete it that quarter or next quarter, whatever, just go ahead and talk to us, and we'll work something out.
Prerequisites and stuff. So you need this class, you need that one. This is only offered once a year.
Certainly. Yeah, if we have low enrollment like that, one of the things that we can oftentimes do, if we're taking overages in other classes, so let's say we have a cap of 25 students, and we end up taking 32 students, okay, so we have 7 over in this class and 7 over another. A lot of times what we can do in dealing with our boss and the school administration is we can then run a low enrollment class, because basically we're making it up in other areas, okay? So, it's just important that you communicate with us and let us know, hey, this is one that I really need. Because oftentimes we can work something out to make it run. Yeah.
would say that's more often than not. We make that work.
Cool, thanks.
Yes?
Why do you do like the program that you not in online classes?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Like working during the day, or
Yeah.
is there a way to get through the program if they can class?
Yes, we have night options, we have weekend options, and we have day options. And, yeah. And we'll work with you. A lot of times we have someone say, hey, you know, I work on Cisco equipment, but I want to take your Cisco classes because I need the certification. And so what we'll say is, hey, we'll work a schedule that works for you so that you can complete those courses even though you can't attend exactly when the class is held. Yeah, we want it to work for you. Anybody else? Anything? Is everybody ready for a short break? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
A couple questions.
Yeah.
What's the difference between certificates and certificates of completion, and do they hold a higher value?
Well, typically, why you would want to take a certificate of completion is you just want a very focused, let's say you just want to get Cisco, but you're not interested in anything else. And you're already working. So you just need one very focused area. That's where you would do a certificate of completion. A certificate is more, you want to get a work-ready skill, and it takes about a year to complete a lot more classes, and it's more broad. Somebody over here have a question? Yes? That's a great question. We use PowerShell. I use
Yes.
PowerShell in all the classes,
Yes.
and we are planning on developing them. I don't know if we had it yet.
We are working on a PowerShell class that will be available in 2016. We've had a lot of requests for it, so
Yeah.
the answer is yes.
Yeah, and you're right. That's a smart thing to ask. It's an important job skill now. Although it's not so much fun to go away from our graphical interface, but that's the way it is. Anybody else?
We have one here.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
Are there prerequisites for the certificates of completion, like we're looking for the EJs?
Yeah, what you'd want to do is look at the course, and it would give you prerequisites for that course, but there's no prerequisite to start it. Yeah. Mhm. Am I missing anyone else? It's really bright here, so I don't see you all. Are we? Okay.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah.